The storm raged against the windshield, a relentless curtain of water blurring the road ahead. Emily Carter tightened her grip on the steering wheel, her knuckles white. The rural highway stretched before her in near-total darkness, illuminated only by the dull glow of her headlights. She shouldn't have stayed so late at the shelter. But a new litter of abandoned puppies had been brought in, their cries raw with hunger and confusion, and she hadn't been able to leave without making sure they were warm and safe. Now she was paying for it, driving alone through a storm that made the world feel eerily empty. Then, in the periphery of her vision, something moved. A shape, barely distinguishable in the downpour, staggered along the shoulder of the road. Not a deer, too small. A dog? It lurched forward, then collapsed near the ditch, disappearing into the murk. Emily's foot hit the brake before she could think. The tires skidded slightly on the slick pavement before coming to a stop. Rain hammered the roof of her car as she leaned forward, squinting into the night. Nothing. For a long moment she hesitated, her heart hammering against her ribs. There was an undeniable instinct screaming at her to keep driving. The way the figure had moved, the unnatural slowness, the faltering steps, it wasn't right. But if it was a dog, and it was hurt. Cursing under her breath, she grabbed the emergency flashlight from her glove compartment and shoved open the door. A blast of wind nearly tore it from her grasp. The cold rain punched against her skin as she stepped onto the shoulder. The flashlight's beam sliced through the downpour, revealing the drenched asphalt, the slick grass along the roadside. And then, there, a dark form lay crumpled in the grass, its fur plastered to its body. Emily's breath caught. It was a dog, its chest barely rising and falling, legs twisted beneath it. Even from a few feet away, she could tell it was not normal. It was larger than any breed she knew, its limbs long. Emily dropped to her knees beside the dog, the mud seeping into her jeans as she reached out with trembling hands. Up close, the animal looked even more bizarre. Its fur was unnaturally thick and coarse, matted with mud and something darker, almost black. A deep wound marred its side, the gash too clean, too precise to be from a car accident. Her stomach twisted. Had someone done this to the dog? The animal shuddered beneath her touch, its body convulsing weakly. A faint whimper escaped its throat, a broken, rasping sound that barely carried over the storm. It was still alive, but barely. Emily's training kicked in. Ignoring the fear curling in her gut, she ran her hands along the dog's ribs, checking for fractures. The bones felt wrong, not just broken, but reshaped as if they didn't quite belong where they were. Her fingers brushed against something cool beneath its fur, something that felt metallic. Her pulse spiked. What the hell? She pulled back, aiming the flashlight closer. For a split second, she thought her mind was playing tricks on her. A thin silver plate was embedded beneath the animal's skin, partially obscured by its tangled fur. Wires, actual wires, peeked from beneath the wound, glistening wetly in the rain. Emily jerked her hand away, her breath coming fast. This wasn't just a dog. A surge of doubt and fear flooded her. This thing, whatever it was injured, desperate, and possibly not even real. A rational voice in her head screamed for her to leave it, to get back in her car and drive away. But then the dog opened its eyes. Two glowing amber irises locked onto hers, burning with something almost human. It wasn't fear or pain she saw, it was recognition. As if it knew her. Her resolve cracked. Whatever this thing was, someone had left it here to die. Someone had hurt it. "I'm getting you out of here," she whispered. Bracing herself, she slid her arms under its limp body and lifted. It was heavier than it looked, its massive frame sagging against her. The second she moved it, the animal let out a deep, rumbling whimper, a sound that sent a chill racing down her spine. She staggered back to the car, struggling to keep her grip as she fumbled with the back door. The dog barely reacted as she hoisted it onto the seat, collapsing in an unmoving heap. Emily climbed into the driver's seat, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. She didn't know what she had just put in her car. But she knew one thing. She wasn't taking it to a normal vet. The vet clinic was quiet when Emily arrived, the neon open sign flickering in the rain-soaked night. She had driven past 3 other animal hospitals before settling on this one, an old, privately owned clinic on the outskirts of town, run by someone who didn't ask too many questions. Dr. Julian Hayes. Emily had only met him once before, years ago, when she had brought in an injured stray the shelter couldn't take. He had treated the dog without hesitation, his only condition being that no paperwork was involved. That was the kind of discretion she needed now. She killed the engine and turned to the back seat. The dog, if it even was a dog, hadn't moved. Its massive body lay sprawled across the seat, shallow breaths fogging up the window. Emily hesitated, gripping the steering wheel. What if this was a mistake? The memory of its glowing amber eyes surfaced in her mind. It recognized her. She wasn't imagining it. Steeling herself, she pushed open the door and hurried to the back, carefully maneuvering the heavy creature into her arms. It barely stirred as she carried it to the clinic's entrance. She knocked, 3 sharp raps against the glass. A moment later, the door creaked open. Dr. Hayes stood in the dimly lit hallway, his graying hair mussed, glasses perched crookedly on his nose. He looked her over, then the unconscious animal in her arms, and said nothing, just stepped aside to let her in. She followed him into the examination room, setting the dog gently on the stainless steel table. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting an artificial glow on the scene. Julian folded his arms. "Tell me exactly where you found it." Emily recounted the night's events, every detail from the roadside encounter to the unnatural texture of the dog's bones. She hesitated before mentioning the wires, but when she did, Julian's face darkened. Without a word, he grabbed a pair of scissors and began cutting away the matted fur around the wound. Emily held her breath as the truth was revealed. Beneath the thick, tangled coat, the metal was unmistakable. Thin silver plating ran along the creature's ribs, seamlessly fused with muscle and bone. Tiny surgical incisions lined its side, barely visible beneath the bloodied fur. Julian exhaled sharply. "This isn't just some stray." Emily swallowed hard. "Then what is it?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached for a scalpel and carefully traced the edge of the plating. The moment the blade touched the metal, something clicked. The dog's body convulsed. Emily stumbled backward as the creature's eyes snapped open, those same glowing amber irises blazing with intensity. It let out a deep, guttural snarl, muscles tensing as if preparing to lunge. Then, in a voice that sent ice through Emily's veins, Julian muttered, "This thing was built." Emily's breath hitched as the dog's body jerked violently on the examination table. The metallic plating along its ribs shifted, clicking into place like a mechanism being activated. The creature's glowing amber eyes locked onto her, filled with something that wasn't just animal instinct, it was awareness. Julian stepped back cautiously, scalpel still in hand. "This isn't a dog," he muttered. "It's something else entirely." Emily's mind spun. The way it looked at her, like it knew her. The wires, the plates, the precision of the incisions. Someone had done this. Someone had built this animal. The creature shuddered again, its muscles twitching. And then, as if coming back to itself, it went still. The tension in its frame eased, and the deep snarl that had rumbled in its throat softened into something that sounded almost confused. Emily hesitated, then reached out slowly. "Hey, it's okay," she whispered. The dog, or whatever it was, flinched but didn't pull away. It was watching her with careful intensity, as if trying to remember something. Julian exhaled sharply. "I need to see what's inside." Emily hesitated but gave a small nod. Whatever this thing was, they had to understand it. Julian retrieved a small medical scanner from the drawer and hovered it over the plating. The screen flickered to life, displaying a series of rapid, scrolling data lines, codes and sequences Emily didn't understand. And then something chilling appeared. A name. Project Halo. Julian's expression darkened. "Emily, this isn't just an experiment. This was a mission. The words settled over her like a weight. What kind of mission? Before he could answer, the dog suddenly jerked upright, moving with a speed it hadn't shown before. The examination tools crashed to the floor as it leapt down from the table, its head whipping toward the door. And then Emily heard it, the sound of tires outside. She turned, heart hammering. Headlights flooded through the clinic's rain-streaked windows. Black SUVs. More than one. Julian cursed under his breath. They're here for it. Emily's pulse spiked. Who was they? Asterisk. The dog let out a low growl, stepping protectively in front of her. A shadow moved outside. The door handle rattled. Then, bang! The clinic doors burst open. Men in tactical gear stormed in, weapons raised. Step away from the asset, one of them barked. Asset. Not a dog. Not an animal. An asset. Asterisk. Emily's instincts screamed at her. Run. Run now. But before she could react, the creature, the one she had rescued from the roadside, the one with metal woven into its very bones, asterisk lunged forward asterisk. And in the chaos that followed, Emily realized one terrifying truth. She hadn't just saved this dog. It had been waiting for her to wake it up.